Donald Trump's rally performances have always been a mix of bombast, projection, and fearmongering, but recent events have taken a dark and dangerous turn. On a tour through Aurora, Colorado, and Reno, Nevada, Trump and his controversial advisor Stephen Miller have once again pushed the boundaries of decency. Their rhetoric, steeped in authoritarian undertones, has drawn comparisons to some of the darkest periods in history. What unfolded at these rallies was not merely typical campaign banter, but a calculated appeal to fear and hate, primarily targeting immigrants and marginalized communities. Stephen Miller, whose white nationalist views have been exposed in leaked emails, took to the stage to rile up Trump's base by pointing at images of brown immigrants, encouraging the crowd to jeer and boo at the photos. His words, dripping with xenophobia, painted immigrants not as people seeking a better life, but as threats to American society. This wasn't just a rally, it was a moment of deliberate incitement, laced with rhetoric that echoed historical authoritarian regimes. As the night wore on, Trump himself delivered a speech filled with incomprehensible rambles and bizarre projections. He attacked Vice President Kamala Harris in an almost incoherent rant, accusing her of being unable to speak, while he himself struggled to string sentences together. This display of cognitive dissonance has become a hallmark of Trump's public appearances, where the accusations he hurls at others often mirror his own flaws. But more alarming was his repeated use of fear to paint immigrants as enemies of the state, claiming they have taken over hospitals and schools, a dangerous lie meant to inflame tensions. This video delves into the disturbing rhetoric used by Trump and Miller, analyzing their inflammatory speeches and the implications for American democracy. The rise of Trump's brand of populism, built on fear and division, has echoes in the past, and we must examine how far this movement is willing to go. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to reaching 1,000 subscribers, but we can't do it without you. So, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe right now. And if you're already subscribed, give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment to let me know your thoughts. Alright, let's dive right into it. The Aurora rally, Stephen Miller's Hitlerian rhetoric. The rally in Aurora, Colorado, marked one of the darkest moments in Trump's campaign. Stephen Miller, Trump's senior advisor and a man with a documented history of white nationalist beliefs, took the stage with a disturbing message. Holding up photos of brown-skinned immigrants, he incited the crowd to hatred, saying, "These aren't the kids you grew up with, are they? Do these look like the people you were raised with? These are the criminal migrants that Kamala Harris brought into your community. This rhetoric is not just xenophobic, it is dangerous." Miller's words intentionally dehumanized immigrants, reducing them to faceless threats to suburban safety. His appeal was simple but effective. Draw a line between us and them, and blame the other for society's problems. By painting immigrants as criminals, Miller played into age-old fears of the foreigner, the outsider, a tactic that has been used by authoritarians throughout history. Miller's comparison of immigrants to criminal elements and his use of fear-mongering rhetoric are eerily reminiscent of Hitler's speeches in Nazi Germany. Leaked emails from Miller have shown his admiration for the immigration policies of the early 20th century, including those that were openly racist. This isn't the first time Miller has been accused of using fascist rhetoric, but the intensity of his speech in Aurora was chilling. The fact that this man is one of Trump's closest advisors only heightens the concern over the direction this movement is taking. Trump's projection, attacking Kamala Harris while stumbling over his own words. While Miller's speech was shocking, Trump's performance at the rally was equally baffling. In a typical Trumpian fashion, the former president took the stage and immediately launched into an attack on Vice President Kamala Harris. He mocked her speaking abilities, saying, "There's something wrong with her when she can't even get up and make a speech for 40 minutes. However, the irony of Trump's statement was palpable. As he was accusing Harris of being unable to speak, Trump himself struggled to finish a coherent sentence. His words tumbled out in a garbled mess, marked by a repetitive pattern that he has become infamous for. He claimed Harris uses word salad when speaking, yet he could barely complete a thought without stumbling over his own words. In one moment, Trump attempted to criticize Harris's speeches, saying, "She makes very short speeches, you ever notice? They're like 10 minutes, my name is Kamala, and she just speaks so routinely." But in trying to make his point, Trump himself ended up creating his own nonsensical word salad. His inability to form a coherent sentence stood in stark contrast to the accusations he was making. This wasn't just an example of Trump's usual rambling style. It was a reflection of his own cognitive decline. His speech, filled with repetitive phrases like "nobody's ever seen before" and "like we've never seen," showcased a man who is increasingly losing his sharpness. In 2016, Trump's bombastic style was at least coherent and energetic, but now it seems like he is struggling to keep up with his own thoughts. The fact that Trump continues to project his own flaws onto his political opponents is not surprising. He has long used this tactic to deflect criticism from himself. But what is more concerning is how his base continues to lap it up, cheering him on even as he fumbles through his speeches. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Fear and lies. Trump's immigration focus. Throughout both rallies, immigration remained a central theme of Trump's rhetoric. He repeatedly painted a dystopian picture of America as an occupied country, claiming that immigrants were taking over hospitals and schools, leaving American citizens without access to basic services. "You can't get into a hospital because the migrants have all the beds," he declared. "You can't get your kids into a school because they don't even speak the language." These are blatant lies. There is no evidence to support the claim that hospitals are overwhelmed by immigrants or that schools are being overrun by non-English speakers. Yet, Trump's base eats it up. This fear-mongering about immigrants is not just about policy. It's about creating a narrative of us versus them. It's about stoking fear and resentment among his supporters, making them believe that their way of life is under threat by outsiders. The reality is that Trump has no real solutions to offer. When it comes to major issues like healthcare, abortion, and foreign policy, his answers are vague at best. On healthcare, Trump has famously said he has concepts of a plan, but nothing concrete. On abortion, he shifts his stance daily, saying one thing in front of one audience and the opposite in front of another. When it comes to Ukraine, his response is always, "We'll see what happens." But on immigration, Trump remains laser-focused. This is the one issue where he feels he can still rile up his base, and it's working. Polls show that Trump's focus on immigration has helped him maintain a strong grip on his supporters. Despite his incoherence on other issues, his message of fear regarding immigrants continues to resonate with a significant portion of the American electorate. Stephen Miller's influence and the rise of fascist rhetoric. Much of Trump's rhetoric on immigration can be traced back to Stephen Miller. As one of Trump's longest-serving advisors, Miller has been the architect of some of the most draconian immigration policies of the Trump administration, including the family separation policy that saw children ripped from their parents at the border. Miller's influence on Trump's speeches cannot be overstated. His white nationalist views have been well documented, and his leaked emails reveal a man who is deeply committed to pushing a far-right agenda. In many ways, Miller is the intellectual force behind Trump's immigration platform. He understands how to tap into the fears of Trump's base, using language that dehumanizes immigrants and stirs up resentment. Miller's rhetoric has long been compared to that of authoritarian leaders, and his speech in Aurora only reinforced those comparisons. By pointing to photos of brown-skinned immigrants and asking the crowd to boo, Miller was engaging in the same type of hate-filled demagoguery that we have seen throughout history. His message is clear. Immigrants are the enemy, and they must be removed from American society. What makes Miller's rhetoric so dangerous is that it is not just limited to words. The policies he has helped to implement have had real and devastating effects on people's lives. Families have been torn apart, children have been traumatized, and communities have been terrorized. And yet, Miller continues to push his agenda, using Trump's rallies as a platform to spread his hateful message. The final push: Trump's desperate grab for power. As Trump's rallies continue, it is becoming increasingly clear that he is in the final stages of his political career. His speeches are more desperate than ever, filled with anger, fear, and a longing to return to power. Trump knows that his only path to avoiding legal consequences is to win the presidency again, and he will stop at nothing to achieve that goal. But the cracks are showing. Trump's inability to form coherent sentences, his repetitive patterns of speech, and his reliance on fear-mongering suggest that he is running out of steam. Even his base, while still loyal, seems less energized than they were in 2016. The sight of a yawning child at one of his rallies speaks volumes about the state of Trump's campaign. Nevertheless, Trump's focus on immigration continues to resonate with his supporters. Polls show that his message of fear is still working, with many Americans buying into the narrative that their country is being invaded by immigrants. And while this message may not be enough to win over new voters, it could be enough to keep Trump in the race. The rallies in Aurora, Colorado, and Reno, Nevada, were stark reminders of the dangerous path that Trump and his advisors are taking. With Stephen Miller's hateful rhetoric and Trump's incoherent ramblings, it is clear that this movement is fueled by fear, division, and a desire to return to a darker period in history. Miller's speech, with its Hitlerian overtones, was a chilling reminder of how far this movement is willing to go in its pursuit of power. As Trump continues his campaign, it is crucial for Americans to see through the fear-mongering and lies. The future of American democracy depends on it.